Today we're going to do inequalities involving absolute value. The inequality of the absolute value of x is less than 3 means that the distance between x and 0 is less than 3. So the absolute value of x, okay, means the distance the number is from 0. It says the absolute value of x is less than 3. So the distance between x, the number we don't know, and 0 is less than 3. So it fits. It could be -2, it could be -1, it could be 1, it could be 2. Okay? So this is the solution set. -3 is less than x, which is less than 3. X has to be between these two numbers, -3 and 3. Because the absolute value of x is less than 3. Any questions? Alright, so this is what your problem is going to look like. It's going to say solve the inequality and then graph. The inequality is this. Absolute value of m plus 2. So m plus 2, the distance that number is from 0 is less than 11. When we're dealing with absolute value, if you remember when we did absolute value equations, we had two cases. One where it's positive and one where it's negative. So we're going to do case 1, where m plus 2 is non-negative, or where m plus 2 is positive. So we just solve this. We don't change anything. M plus 2 is less than 11. So we solve, we subtract 2 of both sides. M is less than 9. So that's my first answer. You will have 2 because it's absolute value and it's an inequality. Everybody have this written down?
Yes. Is that all you have to do?
Then you have to do case 2, where m plus 2 is negative. Now I'm going to show you the first step. This step is not necessary as long as you know what you need to do. We're going to treat m plus 2 as negative. So I rewrite it just like I had everything, but I put m plus 2 in parentheses with negative. Now, I'm not requiring you to do this step, but I'm showing you why you're going to do the next step. And that is changing the sign of 11 and also changing the inequality. Because you could say I divided both of these by -1 to make m plus 2 positive. And since I divide by negative, I had to change my sign. Is everybody with me so far?
Yeah, so when you're just doing a negative, you just change
When you do case 2 where it's negative, you change the sign of the number and you change the inequality. Okay?
So you just minus 1.
Well, case
You
one,
divide by -1.
will case 1 ever be negative, or will they?
Case 1 is positive, case 2 is negative. Okay? Think of it that way. Now we solve for m, so we subtract 2. M is greater than -13. Now I need to graph those. So m is greater than -13. So it's an open circle going to the right. And remember case 1 where m was less than 9. So it's an open circle going to the left. So m could be any number between -13 and 9.
Is it always going to work out like that?
Not always. Now, the way I want you to write this, the answers are -13 is less than m, which is less than 9. That's how I want you to represent it using inequalities. You have 2 of them, put them together. Any questions? So that is how you do absolute value inequalities. You're given this. Solve the inequality and then graph. The absolute value of y minus 1 is less than -2. What it's saying is the distance y is from 0 when you subtract it from 1 is less than -2. However, we know distance cannot be negative. So this is impossible. You can't do this. All right? So there's no solution. We would say this is an empty set. Because y cannot be fulfilled. We cannot figure out what it is. All right. We've been doing inequalities where it was less than. Now we're going to do inequalities that are greater than. The inequality of the absolute value of x, which is greater than 3, means that the distance between x and 0 is greater than 3. It could be 4, it could be 5. And so our solution set here is x could be less than -3 or it could be greater than 3. Right? Because it could be -4, it could be -5, it could be -6, or it could be 4, it could be 5, it could be 6. Because the distance between x and 0 is greater than 3. Any questions? All right, write this down. All right, we need to solve the inequality and then graph. Absolute value of 3n plus 6. So the distance 3n plus 6 is from 0 is greater than or equal to 12. So we do two cases because we're doing absolute value. We do case 1 where 3n plus 6 is non-negative where it's positive. 3n plus 6 is greater than or equal to 12. We just solve for n. So we subtract 6 to both sides. 3n is greater than or equal to 6. Divide by 3. N is greater than or equal to 2. Now we need to do case 2 where 3n plus 6 is negative. Now remember, this is or. This is an or statement because it could be one or it could be the other. It doesn't have to be both. When it was less than, it had to be both. So we do 3n plus 6. Okay, remember we change our inequality and we change the sign of what's over here. You guys remember that? Okay, if you forget to do that step, if you're getting a couple of these wrong, then go back to putting parentheses around this and making it negative. Divide by -1 and then change your sign. Okay? But I think you guys can figure out. You change the inequality and change the positive to negative. Okay? We solve for n. Subtract 6. 3n is less than or equal to -18. So we divide by 3. N is less than or equal to -6. So then we graph those. Here's -6. It's less than or equal to. So it's going to the left. N is also greater than or equal to 2. So it's a closed circle around 2. Going to the right. Any questions on how to do that? Okay. Does it have to satisfy both? No, it can't, right? It only has to satisfy one. That's why this is an or statement. Either has to be on this side or this side. It just can't be in here. All right?
How'd you get negative?
All right, write this one down. So it says solve the inequality and then graph. It has r, the absolute value of r minus 6 is greater than or equal to -5. Now before, on the special solution earlier where we had less than negative, okay, I said that's not possible, right? And that's why it was empty set. Because can you have a distance that's negative? No. However, can you have a distance that's positive? Will this at one point be a positive number?
Yes.
Yeah, because it's greater than -5, right? It could be 0, it could be 1, it could be 2. So the answer for this is real number. R is a real number. R is a real number. Okay, and if you wanted to graph it, you would just do that. Okay? It's all real numbers because it will always be above -5. Right? R will always be a number greater than -5. On the problem before, where it was less than a negative, we can't have that. But because it would always be a negative number, and you can't have negative as absolute value. Distance can't be negative. But in this case, it does give you a negative number, or it does give you a positive number eventually. And so that's why it's all real numbers. R is a real number. Okay? Any questions? All right, here's your homework.